What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Happy Hour podcast. We're back after a week off. I was at the beach last week, so we didn't have a show. We are in the midst of the Olympic break. Simone Biles proving why she is the GOAT. Spoiler alert, if you decide to just watch your Olympics in prime time while it's in Paris, I watched it today. But, still the Olympic break. So we're going to have a unique episode of Happy Hour where basically we're going to talk about a couple storylines we wish happened in 2024 so far. But as always, my name's Trey Lyle, your host. Joining me, no song this week because his voice, musically, we're pausing for the Olympic break. So Michael Massie at _Massie22. Caleb Barnes also here as well.
I wish I could just sit back and watch the Olympics during the day. I don't know. What do you got going on, Trey?
I work as well. There's a thing called YouTube TV where I can watch it on my computer. Or I also have the Peacock. So I have the cock, so it helps.
Whoa. Family program.
The point of this whole podcast is not a family program. But Caleb has indulged every day on this break at Long John Silver's just so we can keep up with how it's going here. And joining us, he is the truck man. He was he is a great reporter, Anthony Damcott at Anthony Damcott on Twitter. His first time in Happy Hour. He decided to go Suns Out, Guns Out look for us here. Rocking the bod as he always does, showing off those 24-inch pythons that he has. Anthony,
Sure.
How are you doing? Welcome into Happy Hour.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm in the middle of moving out of my apartment in Philadelphia, which is moving is always a pain. So I was happy to come on here to get a break from that. Though I don't know if I should be excited or scared of what's to come, given that this is my first time appearing on the program.
It's okay. Brian's not here. You're safe.
Oh,
You're
okay.
safe.
All right.
You're
Cool.
safe. Brian's not here. You're safe. All right, let's do this. So basically the premise of the show is we're going to each pick a headline. We'll talk about it for a little bit about hypothetically if we were writing for frontstretch.com and we wanted a headline to happen in 2024 so far. So from up to this point, we would share it. We think this is a shout out to Tom Bowles. So if you don't like this idea at NASCAR Bowles, because this was his idea. So if you do like it, then give all credit to myself. Okay? If you like it, I get all the credit. If you don't like it, it's Tom's fault. Pretty simple. I think that's how this thing works. Going first, as always, is our guest, Anthony Damcott. What headline that you craved for? And before we begin, reminder, Front Stretch Garage, you put your comments in there. If you have something you want to maybe wish happened so in 2024, put that in the comment section down below. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, like our Facebook page. If you're listening on the audio feed, subscribe to the Front Stretch podcast feed. Give us the 5-star review. Sit back, relax, crack open that cold one. Unless you're, driving, of course, because here at Front Stretch we ask for responsibility. And now, Anthony, after I get the whole spiel out of the way, you can go first.
Yeah, well, I would be remiss if I didn't choose something Truck Series related, seeing as how I do cover the Truck Series for Front Stretch. I was really hoping that we would see something with Frankie Muniz. Obviously he's been all over the place. He's made a couple ARCA starts. Will make, I believe, another ARCA start here in the next few weeks. He's had a couple Xfinity starts, a couple Truck Series starts, but I was really hoping that maybe we could see him in a full-time ride and preferably in the Truck Series. If at all possible. I think the natural level of progression would have suited him really well, but I feel like he did well enough in ARCA last year to warrant any sort of, at least, even if it wasn't full-time, something that was like, not the schedule he has now. I think there was a lot of room for him to develop, and I think he would, if someone devoted the time and resources to him, I feel like he would be a really good driver, actor turned driver. But that's something that I really wanted to see, was maybe getting a full time or at least half season type truck rider like that we'd be talking about him a little bit more than.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one, especially because of how popular he was last year, and I mean, we saw on our anytime we posted a video on our YouTube channel, frontstretch.com backslash, or wait, no, youtube.com /frontstretch. Did I do that
Smooth,
right?
smooth.
Yeah. You only heard the second one there. That like a bunch of people were into watching it, and even saw a lot of conversation around him on Twitter from people outside of the racing world who just liked Frankie as an actor, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's driving race cars now. That's really cool." And it was really surprising to me that, again, like it wasn't like he was really like doing terribly last year. He maybe wasn't in the best equipment, and so it's not like he was necessarily competing for wins, but like he always had some pretty solid runs going. It felt like any of the problems would be like some like a tire failure. He'd be getting caught up in someone else's mess. So I was kind of surprised, like you were mentioning, Anthony, that nobody in the Truck Series or even maybe even the Xfinity Series wanted to take a chance and bring on a guy that's gonna naturally just bring a lot of eyeballs and bring a lot of attention to the sport or to this team specifically because of the background of him being an actor and everything. So I hope he gets some more opportunities to showcase and see what and show off what he can potentially do in a stock car, because it has been a really fun story to kind of follow and see as it progresses.
Yeah, I would take this opportunity to bash Ford's development program because
But it doesn't have one.
Oh yeah, true. You can't bash something that doesn't exist. Because okay, I would argue
Its development program is signing with Joe Gibbs Racing next year and Chase Briscoe.
that is the one driver they've developed in like the last 8 years is now gone. So I guess they developed Blaney as well though, and he's kind of their guy right now. But
And
I would
Cindric,
argue-
don't forget Cindric.
I would argue those two have connections to a guy named Roger Penske, and it was whatever he was driving for is going to be the.
Yeah, it's just their development is whatever Penske wants to do.
Like I don't count William Byron as a Chevy developed driver. He's a Rick Hendrick developed driver.
Right. But so I would say the two most famous people that have raced in the Xfinity Series this year are Frankie Muniz and Haley Deegan. And both of them are with Ford. Both of them had not so great
Chase
opportunities.
Elliott technically did race in the Xfinity Series this year.
Who did?
Chase Elliott technically did race in the Xfinity Series this year.
But I would say people outside of NASCAR probably know
Bubba.
Deegan.
Did Bubba do an Xfinity? No, he hasn't done an Xfinity
No.
Series this year. I was trying to think.
But okay, of non-cup drivers
There
who
we
have
go.
been in there,
I think that's a good preface.
they're the most famous, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty hands down. And they have not gotten too great an opportunity. When I feel like Ford should be all over it. Like, hey, we got this Hollywood actor that's, he's become a race car driver now. Like, get behind that. Or we got the what could be the most successful female driver, which Danica is, I think, has that spot pretty on lock now. But yeah, it's just Ford has not gotten behind their efforts, and it just feels like Frankie's unfortunately gonna like fizzle out because he's not getting a good car. And like when he does race, he's racing a 30th place car. What's he gonna do with it? He's not gonna do anything great with it. So I just wish that Ford would back these guys some more, especially Frankie, because I grew up a fan of Malcolm in the Middle. I remember watching it Sunday nights, and Agent Cody Banks. I remember seeing. I think I saw that in theaters. So I was a big Frankie Muniz fan of him as an actor. So I would love to see him make it.
Well, I was going to say there were connections to a certain Xfinity group last year. Whoever that person is a big fat liar. See what I did there?
I see what you did.
And put Malcolm in the middle of not finding a ride. So he really needs a better agent. Maybe his agent's name is Cody Banks.
All
to
right.
get him a ride next
All
year.
right.
Woo! That was
All right.
pitching a hot bat here. All right. But yeah, with Deegan, it seems like she got to roll into the deal. Like Josh Berry really, and you put Joey Logano in that car with AM Racing really didn't do anything. So it seems to me that Deegan, maybe had some bad luck and wasn't in a good enough equipment. And the same thing can go with Frankie. And it does suck to see because those two definitely bring unique juice to those lower series. I mean, I knew Frankie Muniz because the same reason Massie did. Like, Big Fat Liar was one of my favorite movies as a kid. I liked Agent Cody Banks. I loved Malcolm in the Middle. Like, he was awesome. Like, you know, I knew Bryan Cranston before he was cool. You know, before he did a show about drugs. If you know what I'm, if you know, you know. But it definitely sucks to see, and this is not the first or last time we'll see cases like this. It's kind of shocking with Deegan because she does have funding. Like, we know she has funding, and I would not be shocked if she lands, you know, maybe at a Haas factory team. Like, I would not be shocked. Like, I wouldn't be sitting here shocked because their connections to a certain energy drink and her connections, like, that could easily land her there. It's definitely something I wish, you know, Frankie, the problem obviously for Frankie is his age. He's what, 35, right? Something like that.
38 maybe.
Yeah, I'm looking at his IMDb page because I wanted to be sure I got his. Yeah, he was born in 1985, so he's 39, right?
Yeah.
39? He'll be 39 in
Something
December.
like that. Yeah.
I could do math.
Good math.
Hey, look, took us
That makes one of
almost
us.
a year and a half, and I got math done. Yippee. It sucks to see this. It would have been cool, even if it was, let's say Frankie got a one-off with an RSS, which I think has shown a lot more improvement this season in the Xfinity Series, or insert or maybe Thor Sport in the Truck Series. You know, that would have been really cool to see. But unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet, and maybe it'll happen next year. And I really agree. It puts an indictment on Ford because Ford is losing Haas. Like, essentially, the reason Haas is sticking around because Ford needs some sort of quote unquote developmental system. Like, remember when they had BFK, like BFK Racing, and that was, you know, a really good Ford pipeline? They don't have that anymore. I don't view Thor Sport as a Ford pipeline for things.
What is BFK?
BFK.
What is it?
BKR.
I was wondering about that.
I was thinking of I was really thinking of Burger King Racing. Remember the Cup team?
BK Racing, yeah.
Or whatever it was.
Where does he?
I'm on vacation. All right, this is the Olympic. Oh, I'm not on vacation. This is the break. So I'm not sharp. Okay. Whatever. You knew what I meant. Brad Keselowski. You know, his team, his truck team. Once that shut down, essentially Ford lost a true development. I mean, and I guess the same thing could go with, you know, David Gilliland Racing's Tricon. Like, Front Row is maybe a pipeline team, but they're essentially building for themselves. And
it's a one truck team.
And
so
it's a one truck team. You have
not even a bunch of
Sport,
people, yeah.
But they have Ty Majeski, Ben Rhodes. Like, they're not developmental drivers. No, I think they're both really good. You have Matt Crafton. I mean, he's not a developmental driver.
He's almost Cup ready. Couple more years,
he had one. He did get one Cup start. So yeah. It's just, where is Ford going to go from here? And I think that's the true indictment. All right, moving to our next topic here, or our next headline. We'll go with Caleb. I'll let you go second.
All right. So I got a couple thoughts bumping around in the head, but I think the one I want to go with is we haven't seen any like first time winners or really even like any underdog Cinderella winners this year in the Cup Series. We've seen a few first time winners early in the season in the trucks and the Xfinity Series, and even those guys like Nick Sanchez, Rajah Caruth, Jesse Love. It's not like they've necessarily set the world on fire in their respective series, but especially in the Cup Series, we've kind of gotten accustomed to the last few years seeing 1, 2, 3, even more. I think in 2022, a lot of these first-time winners, or just these guys who like are picking up their second, third career wins, stuff like that. And we haven't seen a ton of that this year. And I think that's something that I've kind of been missing out on a little bit. Ty Gibbs has been really good at times, but it seems like they've been bitten by the mistake bug a little bit here and there throughout the summer because he's had speed to sit on the pole, but then they've had engine issues and things like that. And then, I mean, Josh Berry has been fast. He's shown speed capable to go up and compete for top fives and even lead a few races, but he seems like he has something that usually kicks him down the running towards the end of the races. You could argue at the beginning of the season, like Noah Gragson and Todd Gilliland were pretty impressive in their own respects. And then even looking at some of the super speedway tracks, like you always look for a guy like Corey LaJoie and Carson Hocevar has been impressive with his team, but we haven't really seen those kind of stand out, the guys competing for their first win. Like we would always talk about, like, when's Chase Elliott going to get that first win? When's Ryan Blaney going to get that first win? When's William Byron, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, all those guys? And there's a little bit of talk, of chatter around when is Ty Gibbs going to get that, but it's not like he's up front running in the top 3 week after week and things like that. On the flip side, we have seen a lot of winless streaks get broken this year. So that has been good to see. It's a bit of a different storyline with the multiple winners in the next gen car, but I guess a few things to go off of. Like, do you guys appreciate more of the winless streaks being broken, or do you want to see these underdogs find their way to victory lane? And then also, who do you think is the most capable underdog or first time winner that we're going to see next?
So I think when it's the quote unquote first time winners, if you want to break it down on like who are the contenders each week to get their first win, it's like Ty Gibbs is like up here, like in the ceiling, and then like on the floor is Todd Gilliland, and it feels like that's it based off of performance. Maybe you throw in Josh Berry as well, and you know, but I just don't have faith in Stewart Haas Racing right now, and I think they're going to get worse as the season goes on. But right now I feel like the only person that's a true contender to basically become a quote unquote first time winner, it is Ty Gibbs. And I just think as the farther we get away from the start of the next gen, these more, you know, Joe Gibbs, Hendrick Motorsports, Penske, et cetera, are going to get more well acquainted with how the next gen works and how, you know, it's sort of how all these generation of cars work. It's like we have great parity at the start, and then a team that has, you know, more resources figures out how to make the car faster. And I think that's what we're just seeing in year 3 of this. The one thing it's done well is created good parity from the top 20. I think we're going to keep that. And I really do enjoy that. I really enjoy the fact that it feels like 20 guys each week can win a race, whereas years ago it felt like 5 guys. And I think we're going to have the top 20. But when you have that, you're not going to have as many what feels like upset wins and what feels like first-time winners, because if more people win in one season, you have less people to quote-unquote be a first-time winner. So, some basic math.
Yeah. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Trey. I feel like Ty Gibbs is the one who has the best shot, but at the same time, you know, I'll use his Xfinity teammate Sheldon Creed as an example, where Sheldon Creed, we think he's going to go to victory lane almost every week at this point, and he has, you know, 400 second place finishes.
Yeah, but Ty Gibbs doesn't choke like him.
Fair enough, but I think, you know, the point in that is, like, at least Sheldon Creed puts himself in positions to win, and I don't know if we've really seen that out of Ty Gibbs yet. I mean, people can feel free to disagree with me, but, like, yeah, he's been up front, he's led laps, but, like, I don't know if there's ever been a situation where he's been there at the end because he runs into engine troubles, because he has a mid-race spin that he can't recover from, because he has a pit road penalty or something like that, or just his speed isn't there. So, I mean, it is a little bit surprising that we haven't had a first-time winner this year. We've come close. You know, with Zane Smith at Nashville, that was almost big.
Hell yeah! Whoever picked that guy.
You know, had Joey Logano not gone, you know, 600 laps on fuel, we might have seen Zane Smith go to victory lane.
Do you still think that car should be? I feel like a typical Anthony Damcott tweet after a race is they should check that car. Like the car should go to the R&D center.
Admittedly, I did say that they should
But that
need
wasn't
to
the
strip
first time you said that this season.
That's true, because I said the same thing when Jesse Love won the Xfinity race. I just feel like when a car is capable of going really far outside of a fuel window, that there's a little more to it. Now we've seen it twice, so either TV and crew chiefs are grossly underestimating how far a fuel run can be, even when you're stretching it, or there's something else going on. But I digress. We almost had a Zane Smith dub. We almost had Joey Hand at Chicago.
I almost picked that as my topic, is that Zane Smith wins at Nashville, so I could be insufferable.
I can only imagine what it would have been like had Zane Smith won for you, Trey. I feel like you'd never let us hear the end of it.
I did pay, he would have counted my rookie of the year pick for him. He would have counted. It would have been a great pick for me in the front stretch draft. It would have been great, Anthony. So that's my honorable mention. I'll put that as that.
Fair enough. But I mean, and we have some people like we said, who could be there if a little bit of strategy falls their way, or if one thing goes differently for whoever did win. I feel like we've had times where we feel like, oh, maybe Todd Gilliland can win this race, or maybe Noah Gragson, if he puts himself in the right position, could sneak away with a win. But yeah, I mean, I on the flip side, to kind of touch on your point, Caleb, of winless streaks broken, I feel like that's also something that is good to see, though. To see Daniel Suarez get back to victory lane. One of the greatest finishes of the season, maybe of the 2020s, and then to see Chase Elliott finally break through the victory lane, to see Hooters finally break through the victory lane before they made their hasty exit. It's cool to see that happen when you have these people who have been trying to get to victory lane for so long. And I feel like if Kyle Busch wins this year, it'll be the same thing. So that's cool in and of itself, but at the same time, I feel like, on the other hand, it'd be cool to have a first-time winner. And it's surprising that we haven't seen that yet. And at least on the Cup side, obviously in Xfinity we had, Jesse Love is the one that comes to mind. He's had a great
SVG.
Yeah.
Technically, was a first-time winner.
Yes, SVG first-time Xfinity winner.
The trucks are the two, to me, that felt like most sentimental was Sanchez, because he was so close, and then I think the way Raja, and obviously that was a big win for the sport as a whole. I think those two are the two first-time winners that are the most notable this season.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think
maybe
the Truck Series,
if Connor Zilic was 5 feet from winning, I would have thrown that in there too.
Fair enough. I mean, you're right. I think when I think of first-time winners this year, the ones that come to mind are Nick Sanchez and Raja Carruth, just because of how close they were before, like in the case of Sanchez, or how historic it was with Carruth. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit more. I would like to have that one race where I'm like, holy cow, I would have never expected Carson Hocevar to steal this one. But we just haven't seen that, unless it evolves into absolute chaos like Nashville, where you have Zane Smith a couple feet from winning, or Corey LaJoie restarting top 10 with a legitimate shot, people like that. So, but I mean, it'd be interesting to see if we could get another SVG win on a road course, or if maybe AJ Allmendinger could sneak his way into victory lane at some point in his couple of starts here and there. But yeah, it is shocking to see that we haven't had a true first-time winner yet. And Ty Gibbs, we've all said, when is Ty Gibbs going to win? And right now we haven't really seen anything that says he's so close.
I know why Ty Gibbs hasn't won yet. Because he's backed by Ed Lane every week. That is why. And someone who's faded him every week, it has worked out for me.
Yeah, Ty needs to have an intervention with Ed Lane to get him to stop
I
taking
hey,
pills, start winning races.
Ed's gonna listen to this at 2 times the speed because that's how he always does it. This is, and if you don't know, I work in radio in Lynchburg, Virginia. Ed Lane is the host of the Fast Lane. A lot of front stretch people come on. I sometimes host the show, but that's where I work, my daytime job. And he is a big Ty Gibbs fan, and so he's listening to this at 2 times the speed, like as we talk, like when this is on the podcast feed. So he's gonna enjoy this part. And it is I want to get him for his birthday. If Ty Gibbs had a cameo, like that's what I want to get him. Like that would be the great thing. So Ty Gibbs, if you're somehow watching this, can you just somehow record a video for Ed Lane and send it to us at Front Stretch, and I'll save it for his birthday and then give it to him? That would be great. Massie, I interrupted your whole point, so go ahead.
Yeah, part of the problem is there's a lot of win hogging going on across the top 3 series right now, where right now, it started out in Cup. If you weren't Hendrick or Gibbs, you weren't winning races. Now Penske has joined that fold. But I was just looking, the last 9 races have been won by either Gibbs, Hendrick, or Penske. So there's like not much parity going on in Cup. Trucks, you got Eckes and Corey Heim winning every single race, it feels like. In Xfinity, we were a nose from I almost said Ryan Preece, from Ryan Sieg getting his first win. Sheldon Creed's been there countless times, and you just had deals with like John Hunter Nemechek stealing wins in that series, and so yeah, it's just.
And the only challenger, Massie, to your point about the Cup Series, like I would argue the number one challenger, if you take those 3 teams out, is essentially the 5th Gibbs car, which is Tyler Reddick. Like, right?
Reddick, yeah.
If you make the list of like
RFK is right there, I'd say.
But Reddick has been better than both RFK cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's close.
I look at like RFK could easily have 3 or 4 wins, and Reddick could
Same
easily
thing
have
for
3
Reddick.
or 4
Reddick is 3rd in the points. Like Reddick realistically could win the regular season points title.
Yeah. But he's only got 1 win so far.
So does Chase Elliott.
So does Chase Elliott, yeah.
Chase, also, like we say, it's Gibbs, Penske, and Hendrick winning them all, but half of Gibbs is winless right now. That's a crazy thing to think about. But I will say, the first time winner, that we haven't gotten a whole lot of that this year, but I will say the wins for Austin Cindric and Riley Herbst both felt kind of like first. It essentially showed that those first wins that they had weren't a fluke, right? Like Cindric win Daytona 500, backing up with Gateway, I think is huge. I think Herbst proved a lot of people
dominated at Las Vegas, though. He won by 11 seconds. Like
he did, but like winning the Brickyard, it's not.
That's true. The way he won that race at the Brickyard, like you passed Cole, like the way he passed Cole Custer.
Yeah. It just felt awesome. Like, you could say at Vegas, they just hit on a really good setup that was better than everybody. But like Brickyard, he went out and
he outdid a Cup driver.
Yeah.
Which he might be a Cup driver given rumors, which was funny given people, poo-pooing that rumor, and then he goes out and wins the race. It's pretty good, Riley Herbst. That was pretty good.
What did Denny say about it? What was the word?
He said interesting, right? Impressive. That's what it was. So
monster. I feel like 2311, has a monster influence on why Riley Herbst might be the 3rd car.
I wonder why. There'll be a lot of monster cars out there next year. It's gonna be so confusing. But anyways, so we're not getting those first wins, but I think we've gotten some good winless streaks, some good guys backing up that they belong in the series they're in or even higher. So it's still been a good season from that standpoint. And I think we'll get I can't see us going a whole Cup season without at least one first-time winner, right? Like I feel like
it's going to be Ty Gibbs. Like it's
going
to
be Ty, but it could be a Hocevar, it could be Josh Berry. It could be one of these guys stealing one. Berry had a couple races where
was second at Iowa. Was it Iowa? He was leading.
He was good. Yeah, he was good at Iowa. But yeah, it was So we'll get one of them somewhere. I don't rule that out.
All right, moving to our next topic, and this is actually going. I thought this was gonna be a 30-minute episode. We had like essentially one topic. We just broke it up into 4 parts. But we're 30 minutes in, so this is going longer than I thought. All right, Michael Massie, your turn.
Well, so what I was going to talk about kind of ties into the last topic a little bit, in that we haven't, some of those teams that broke out and really had great years in the first year of the next gen car, they've kind of not been around that much. They haven't been that competitive. I think the first one that comes to mind is Trackhouse. Suarez won Atlanta. Outside of that, like Ross Chastain, the way 2022 went, and even like the beginning of last year, it was like setting up for him to have this like superstar trajectory. And now he might miss the playoffs. Like the way things are trending, he's falling. He is free falling out of the playoffs. So that's a team that really needs to get on it. Another one's Legacy. I mean, I laugh at when they post graphics about how they did on the weekend, because it's always like when Jimmy's in the race, it'll be like 30th, 32nd, 33rd for qualified or something like that. And you're like, this is a team that 2 years ago, Eric Jones won the Southern 500 and was like a contender for several races that year. And it seemed like that team with Jimmy Johnson joining the fold were really gonna launch, and like we're missing out on the storyline of Jimmy Johnson's team versus Hendrick. So that's like another one. And then I like 2311, they're still good, but like Bubba just doesn't seem quite as good this year as the last team. And Reddick, like we said, he's only won one race. He should have won a lot more.
But 2311 has cleared themselves over those two teams. Like,
yeah. They're definitely
I think they're the clear. I think if you made tiers, like Penske, Hendrick, and I'm interrupting, so I'm sorry, but Penske, Hendrick, Gibbs is like tier 1, and then like tier 2 is probably what RFK and 2311, and then you have this third tier of like Trackhouse, Front Row, whatever.
Well, then I think the last team that was really good in the first year of the next gen was RCR. You know, you had Reddick win some races, had Austin win a race, and now it's like they might go completely winless. So, yeah, it's just, what do you guys think is up with these teams that, you know, if they were up there contending, we'd have more parity, we'd have more race winners to talk about, like the whole playoff battle. We'd be talking about 16 winners again or whatever. But like what's up with these guys that showed flashes at the start of the next gen era, like not really having it now?
Well, I think if we remove Kyle Busch from the equation, because I think we're all kind of stunned at that performance, I think the biggest surprise, to me at least, would be Legacy Motor Club, because this was a team that entered 2024 with a lot of hype and a lot of promise based on their switch to Toyota and the signing of John Hunter Nemechek, who lit up the Xfinity Series last year. And so far, they're performing the same way, if not worse, than they were in 2023. And I think we all had this perception that if they were going to have Toyota support, or if they were going to switch to Toyota, that they were going to run on the same level or better than 2311. And they haven't, I mean, except for the occasional, like John Hunter Nemechek somehow was a legitimate threat to win at Indianapolis at one point. But like, aside from that, there really hasn't been, sometimes people forget that Legacy Motor Club's even in the field because they haven't really done anything different from last year. So that one I think is the big surprise to me. You know, there are some other teams that I think are on their way up that haven't quite gotten there yet, like Spire. I think, you know, I feel like if maybe next year they could be someone who could spoil the Gibbs Hendrick party. But then, you know, you mentioned like Trackhouse as well. I think Trackhouse is kind of all over the place this year. I think, you know, there was a lot of promise when Suarez won at Atlanta, but since then, he certainly hasn't done anything. And Ross Chastain, try as he might, hasn't really been, you know, the wild card Ross Chastain that we're used to. So I'm yeah, it's a little surprising to see some of these teams that we would expect to maybe not run up front, but at least be top 20. And sometimes they're even struggling to get that. I've kind of skirted around RCR because I think it's been beaten to death how much that's kind of fallen apart so fast. I've told people that I think, in the case of Kyle Busch, I feel like this year, the year that he's having this year is the year we all thought he was going to have last year. And then the year that he had last year was the year that, we all thought he was going to have this year, where he was going to have growing pains last year and probably crash out a lot. And everyone was going to question the move to RCR. And then he was going to come back and win, 3-4 races and compete for the championship. And it's completely flip-flopped. And now we're all talking about, can Kyle Busch even, finish top 30, let alone, even be a contender for a win. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised. I think if even one or two of those teams had a little bit more speed, I think there'd be a little bit more of the parity that we've all been wanting with going back to 2022 and having 20 different winners. So, yeah, certainly surprised me. But like I said, I think the biggest surprise to me is Legacy Motor Club, just because of the hype that they had with Toyota and John Hunter Nemechek, and they really haven't done anything much different from last year.
I think for me, just going back to the original, like my biggest surprise is Trackhouse and specifically Ross, just because of the wild card that he's been, just the animal, the rugged Florida watermelon man that he's been since he's really gotten into good equipment back with Ganassi and the Xfinity series. And it's been a little odd not to see him doing as much. It really does feel like ever since that Darlington incident last year, like you go all the way back there, and that's kind of whenever it seems like he took off a bit of his edge or whatever he had that made him super competitive. And yeah, he went out and won Nashville and then Phoenix, but those were kind of the only two races where he really was fast up inside the top 5, top 3, contending for the win. Ever since then, just really haven't. He's still been solid inside the top 15, top 10, and then there have been a few shocker races where he's running way further back, and you're like, where's Ross Chastain? Like that was kind of the case early on at Indy, while Bubba Wallace was up there leading laps, winning the second stage. Ross Chastain was back in the mid-20s. So I think that's such a miss on a storyline too, just because of the electricity he has brought to the Cup Series, with winning at the way that he won his first race, and smashing the cars and smashing the watermelons and the wall ride and everything. And he even carried that wild card element into, that was every single week. It felt like for the first couple months we were talking about, oh, here's what Ross Chastain did this week. Here's what Ross Chastain did to Kyle Larson or to Denny Hamlin or whatever. And that, sure, all the drivers were upset about it. And they're like, someone get a load of this guy, but it was fun for us as whether you're a fan or whether you're a reporter. It's a really fun storyline and angle to see, this guy does not care at all. He's just going for it. And that just has been, especially not only Ross, but then Trackhouse itself also is just such a cool team and a cool brand. That's what a lot of these new teams, 2311, Legacy, and Trackhouse, they're these cool new brands, different from just being named after a team owner and kind of following the team owner and falling into their brand guidelines. They're kind of changing the game a little bit, but we haven't really seen that correlate as much to their on-track performance this year. So, and plus Ross has that big Busch Light sponsorship this year too, that we were all super, I guess maybe surprised isn't the right word, but that was a big story last year to see that it was leaving Kevin Harvick and Ross Chastain was the next big successor for that sponsorship. So the other teams, the Legacy, you've already got 2 top Toyota teams, and it's hard to start out and get up to their level. So we might see some more competition from them in the coming seasons. And then, RCR, just it's the teams at the top are getting better the longer that we've had this next gen car, and the parity that was super close. There are some slight gaps, and with this car, when you get a slight gap, it's a massive gap.
I think RCR was using old school ideas for a new school car, and it cost them. I think the reason they were so good at first is they were a part of a lot of the development of the next gen car, so that gave them a big advantage. And as time goes on, that advantage went away. As for Trackhouse, I think they're in a unique case of, because honestly, Suarez has not performed that well. I mean, he was like an inch. Like if Ryan Blaney's like an inch further in Atlanta, like Suarez is nowhere near the playoff picture right now. And I'm not here to discredit that win for Daniel Suarez. I think he made a great move, but it is what it is. I think Trackhouse is this unique case of spreading itself out too thin. Like 2311 and Trackhouse are perfect comparisons for each other because they came in at the same time, essentially. Started as one, moved to two with the next gen car. 2311 has maintained the two cars since then. There are some weekends, every weekend now, I treat Trackhouse as a 3-car team, essentially, even though Zane Smith is in a Spire car. My guess is Trackhouse has a lot more to do with that car than Spire Motorsport. Or Trackhouse has more to do with that car than Spire Motorsports, because Zane Smith is a Trackhouse signed driver. And it's a lease, essentially they're leasing Zane Smith to Spire Motorsports. And I know Spire is using like 2 Hendrick crews and a Trackhouse crew for the third team. And then you throw in the week's SVGs in the 16. I think that's a Trackhouse car. It's not a Kaulig car. Clearly, look at the speed of the car. Like, it's not a Kaulig car. And so that could be a case, especially these last couple of weeks, because SVG's been in it. Zane has improved. Like, they're stretching themselves too thin, and it's affecting Ross, where Ross doesn't have that win, and 2311 has been better, and, it could result in, that last spot going to Bubba instead of Ross. Like, there's a lot more factors at play there, obviously. Someone below can win, Ross could win, et cetera, et cetera. Kyle Busch could win, et cetera, et cetera. So Trackhouse is in this unique case where, are they growing too fast, and is it costing them on the track right now? Because there are some weeks they're operating as a 4-car team, even though one car is with Kaulig, one car is with Spire, but like, we know who they are signed for. Like, it's not like Zane Smith signed with Spire. So I wonder if they're stretching themselves too thin and it's costing their performance, because we know how good Ross is. Ross is taking a niece truck and exceeding expectations in it. He is, he is an elite driver. We know that. You make a championship you're an elite driver. I think that's fair to say. I feel like that's a really good standard to say at this point. So I wonder if that's the issue with Trackhouse right now, is they have 4 drivers that are sometimes showing cup action, 3 full-time. I know one's with Spire, and I don't know, maybe Spire is doing 95% of the work. But if they're not, and Spire's doing or Trackhouse is doing 50% of the work, well, that's a lot of time and effort that Trackhouse is putting into not Ross Chastain that they did before this season.
Well, and don't forget the 97 in the Xfinity Series, too. It's the same thing.
I think that's more Kaulig based, because they produce a good Xfinity.
I've seen deals where like SVG have a mechanical issue or something. They're in the garage.
Trackhouse is working on it.
Yeah, Trackhouse guys are there. Ty Norris is standing there.
Thank you for making my point even better.
Yeah.
Trackhouse, it's funny how Trackhouse and Kaulig have this same issue of maybe they're expanding too fast and it's hurting everybody's performance all around.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see what happens. I mean, I think Trackhouse benefited from the fact that they took basically an underperforming Cup team and performed it to its standards, because I would argue that's what Chip Ganassi Racing was, and it might have maxed out with that. All right, final topic. And if you know me, and you know how I was excited for this moment, I'm going to pick this one. And this probably be our least discussed one. But it's Kyle Larson actually doing the double. Too bad Mother Nature had to give that hot to the racetrack and rain on Memorial Day weekend on that Sunday and ruin Kyle Larson doing the double. He did win at Indy, and he basically said he's doing the double again. But my headline that I wish happened in 2024 is we woke up Memorial Day. I said he would win both races. I'm not going to go that far. But Kyle Larson did just as well as Tony Stewart did in the double and actually completed all 1,100 miles. So that's where that was mine. I don't know if we have much to talk about. We kind of already touched on it, but what do you think? I feel like that's definitely the like coolest, or that might be a years from now. Like, what if he was able to do it? Let's say this deal falls through and he doesn't get another chance to do it. Like, that's definitely something that I hope happens again. I think it will happen again, but it definitely pulled a lot of energy out of that Coca-Cola 600, and it definitely put a pun intended, a rain cloud over that weekend.
Yeah, really all three of the crown jewels have kind of missed that element with ending under yellow. But I think that the whole Indy Charlotte double, depending on how things go next year, could be that biggest what if. I think if it does come through next year, like it all sounds like they're trying to make happen, I think it maybe not necessarily loses some of its importance, but it's like a sigh of relief. Like, oh, it's okay. They got another chance to work this thing out. But it still was such a, just not even to get to see Kyle Larson turn any laps in the Cup car at all during the race. Like, that was the biggest missed storyline. Like, after it was clear that he wasn't going to make the green flag, then you're like, well, that sucks. Like, that takes a lot of the juice out. But who knows? Justin Allgaier was pretty fast. Kyle could hop in the car, go to the front, but not having that chance at all. And then on top of that, the speeding penalty did take a lot of the juice out of that storyline. I guess, payback was this whole Kyle Larson winning Indy this past weekend in that same paint scheme. That was a pretty neat, like, kind of unique storyline that we wouldn't have had without that stuff. Or who knows, maybe it could have been better. All these what ifs. But that is a really big missed storyline of this year. And hopefully it will be next year. Like, hopefully this will just be the great setup, and Kyle Larson will come back. He'll learn from his speeding penalty, and he'll be in the top three there at the end. And then the two leaders will get together and he'll swoop in and take the victory. And then he'll fly to Charlotte, and then he'll do, like, maybe we're all setting ourselves up for an even better story in 2025. But I do agree. It was such a missed opportunity this year.
Can I add? Next year, let's add to this and have Scotty Mack do it as well. I'm just saying. That's the only Indy car that could do it, because he's raced.
Him and Blaney, right? Him and Blaney are supposed to do it together.
I would love it. I would love multiple. Like, I would love to see it the other way around, because I think Scott McLaughlin could do it.
I was thinking about that, though, because Penske is they drive Chevrolets in the IndyCar series, but then Ford's in the Cup. I mean, it's all under the Penske umbrella, so surely they can make something work. But I wonder if that's like an extra.
I mean, it's Roger Penske. I think he can do whatever he wants. Like, I really do. It's Roger Penske.
I was disappointed that I wanted to see Larson get Justin Allgaier his first Cup win. Like, how cool is that?
Almirola got it with him.
Then, like Almirola with the Xfinity Series. But yeah, then Caleb's problem would be solved, because we'd have a first-time winner in Justin Allgaier. So, that was one of the storylines I was kind of hoping for. Once it became evident he was going to miss the start. But it was a bummer being there, but I'm glad that he was able to turn all the laps at Indy, and that he does seem open to trying it again, and that he was really competitive at Indy. And, even if he wasn't able to do the double this year, I still think it was a really successful event, just for, and, turned a lot of eyes towards motorsports as a whole. So I still think it was a really great, really cool thing to witness. And yeah, man, I'm glad that he got that waiver. It's funny that he went from everybody's like NASCAR's man to now he's the golden boy again. So that just in a couple of months that changed. But I would love to see 4 drivers try the double next year. Like, that would be awesome, because Kyle Busch wants to do it too. Get him in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why this is probably the biggest missed storyline this year is because of how big the storyline was to begin with. Because we're talking about Kyle Larson, who I believe Tony Stewart described him as a plug-and-play driver. He's one of the greatest race car drivers of this generation, and now he's going to run alone 100 miles, and Hendrick and Aaron McLaren, they're going to work together to put it all together. It's a big, massive deal. I don't remember this much fanfare when Kurt Busch did it in 2014. Like, yeah, it was a big deal, but because it was the double, but like it wasn't as big a deal as hearing the name Kyle Larson affiliated with the double. It would have been like if Tony Stewart in his final year of competition somehow decided, I want to do the double. I feel like that would have had a whole lot more fanfare than Kurt Busch in 2014. So.
Massie, you were alive. You were an actual adult when Tony Stewart did the double. I was 3.
I thought you were gonna say I was alive when Kurt Busch did the double. I'm pretty sure everybody here was.
I was gonna say, yeah, we all were alive when
I mean, you were alive when Mario Andretti won the Indianapolis 500. Oh,
It's not, but good try.
I think Massie laid some of the original bricks on the yard, right?
He did. Good call.
He witnessed
Clearly,
Ray
Kyle
Hurley
Larson
win.
is. You know what? There is one thing my takeaway after watching that. This is for Mike Neff, and I think Massie knows what I'm going to say. Kyle Larson, I know, is the better race car driver than AJ Foyt. That's the one takeaway I had from the Indy 500. Right, Massie?
Yeah. Any actual AJ Foyt fans, they're not Mike Neff. I apologize, but to Mike Neff, yeah, that's completely true statement.
Yeah, I mean, this was a huge storyline, and obviously, we all know how much work it takes to put something like this together. Obviously, especially for someone like Hendrick, like we talk about Scotty Mack and Ryan Blaney. Well, it's easy because they can run under the same team. You can't do that. Kurt Busch couldn't do that because Stuart Haas didn't have an IndyCar team. Hendrick doesn't have an IndyCar team. So now you have to have a whole third party essentially involved in putting together an IndyCar ride, and all this work and all the promotion that they did for it. I mean, they unveiled the paint schemes for both of those cars like a year before Larson even took to the track. For the month of May. So this was a huge deal for both NASCAR and IndyCar. It was arguably going to get more eyes on both, to see how the 17 was going to do or how the 5 was going to do. And then, yeah, Mother Nature decided that she didn't want that to happen. And, it's a shame because obviously it's been so long since the last double was completed. And obviously it just shows that Tony Stewart was built different or something like that, or Mother Nature like Tony in the 2000s.
An engine like Tony.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what happened with Kurt Busch.
Yeah. I mean, so I hope that it all comes together for him to try it in 2025. It sounds like I feel like the only thing holding up the official announcement is probably like language of the contract, essentially, because I feel like that all the pieces are there to try it again. And obviously, Kyle Larson was probably the most distraught of all people when that didn't come to be. So I think 2025. Hopefully, we can see it again. Obviously, it was awesome to see him win at the Brickyard in that papaya paint scheme, because that was his first time outside of qualifying for the 600. That was his first time running it. So, it was cool to see that kind of get closure on that paint scheme, at least, since really up until then, it was Justin Allgaier's paint scheme. So, yeah, I really hope it happens in 2025. And I agree. I think this was probably one of the biggest storylines that I wish happened in 2024. Just because of how big it was supposed to be for American motorsports, really.
Yeah, absolutely. As we move to our next topic before we wrap up the front stretch draft, and ladies and gentlemen, I am coming for the top spot. After what was it, Indianapolis? I have gained on Massie. unfortunately for him, Zane Smith is carrying my team back to victory. Also, I have 2 of the top 3 in the points right now, so that helps as well. So Massie in the league at 28.59. I'm behind him at 28.37. And Tom, Kyle Busch is killing your team because you are slowly losing track for last place with Brian. The good news is, Massie, you and I have cleared ourselves as the front 2, which, to be honest, not surprising. But I'm coming for you for the top spot as we head to the home stretch. And are you shaking in your boots?
No, because Joey Logano is just now getting hot. Byron has had a horrible summer. You got to figure he's going to turn it around. Who else do I have? Bell's had
You're
a couple.
going to have all 4 guys. You have all 4 guys essentially going to be in the playoffs if Gibbs, unless there's not enough winners. I will not have such case because of Zane Smith. So that might might help. But the only bonus points for the play. We get 10 plus points for making the playoffs, plus another 10 for each round that makes. So I just need my 4 to make it go on a deep run. So I think that's what's going to hurt me is Zane Smith, unfortunately, despite the improvement, unless he could have somehow pulled off that win in Nashville,
Hey,
he's going to hold.
Still got Daytona on the schedule. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's
okay,
true.
so pretty much if I get Logano, Bell, Byron in the championship 4, then I'm going to have it locked up.
Yeah, I could get, but realistically, I could get Hamlin, Reddick, Elliott in the championship 4.
Ooh.
Yeah, you could for sure.
So that would it's coming down to us too. Let's be.
I also don't know if it's too late in the season to add like a stipulation for regular season championship. Like I feel like I already laid it out at the start of the season, so maybe it's not. But at the same time,
we did mid-season add bonus points for the All-Star win, so we kind of can do. This is the first year. We can do whatever.
Yeah.
Creative freedom.
Whoever was leading at the Olympic break gets 100 bonus points.
Actually, they get negative 100 points.
They lose all their points and have to reset and crawl back up to the top again.
But we'll see what happens. All right. No one is writing this week, I don't think, right? Anyone writing this week?
Not me.
Nope.
No. These 2 guys over here, I'm pointing the wrong way. It's the opposite on my screen. Do Fire on Fridays. Anthony also does some truck stuff, tracking the trucks. Caleb does Thinking Out Loud. I just host podcasts and edit them and have to deal with Brian Nolan. That's like the 3 lines of my job description. So, but that will do it for this special edition of Happy Hour. We're back next week, Tuesday, 7:30 on YouTube. Davey Siegel back next week. We'll have a guest for you as well. We'll preview Richmond as that's when I get to see that guy's beautiful face in person in 2 weeks. So thanks so much for listening to this special edition of Happy Hour. Enjoy the rest of your Olympic break. Go Team USA all the way.